Yeah, every once in a while I step back and I say, you know, it is just so cool to have the opportunity to learn how to do things like this and to create things of such visual interest. Let's go ahead and open up the file, org_sb_wall.psd. I have to go to full screen view mode. This is the image as shot of a wall in Santa Barbara, California, where I work, just a couple blocks away from my office. And one of the things that's interesting about this wall is that it's old in the context of all this really new stuff. So I'm just fascinated by it. I love how the vines are growing across it as well. Alright, what I want to do is build up some drama with this image. I want to add a little bit of an edge, a little bit of a grit to the image. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with our good old technique. Command J a few times. We know the routine now. Middle one's black and white, top one's going to be a blend mode. And so we'll start off in our black and white layer simply by desaturating it. Top one, we're going to go to a blend mode of soft light. It's going to give us this real nice muted look. One of the things I noticed when I do this is that I lost all the green of the leaves over here. So I'm going to turn those layers off and I want to bring those guys back. Click on my background layer. And what I'm going to do here is use my magic wand, believe it or not, sometimes called the tragic wand. Yet I think it's going to help us out here. So let's check it out. We'll grab the magic wand, a pretty low tolerance, maybe 7 or so. Contiguous checked off, so it will select things that are like it. Okay, I have a good selection of the leaves. It's also selected other parts of the image, but I'm okay with that. What I'm going to do here is simply press Command J and then Option click to see what I have. Okay, well I can see that I have the leaves as well as some of the vines and some other stuff. No problem. Put this layer on top of the stack, turn all these on. Now I have this one that's bringing back some detail in the leaves as well as in the vines. And what could be interesting, take this to a blend mode of screen. It's really going to make those details kind of snap out. But I don't want to have all the vines coming in, so I'm going to Option click the mask icon. Then with my brush tool, I will paint with white and just bring some brightness back to these leaves. And if I paint with different brush sizes a little bit, different areas, I can still create a little bit of an interesting effect here, so it's not too overpowering. Alright, so I'm just bringing back some brightness to those leaves. That's going to be important as I work on this image. Now I'm going to click back to my blend mode layer. And what I want to do is I actually want to increase the contrast here. And I want to do this in a unique way. I'm going to load one of my channels. In this case, I'm going to load my red channel. The way I can do that is press Shift, Option, Command 1, or Shift, Alt, Control 1 to load any of the channels. Shift, Option, Command 1 will be red, and then 2 green, and 3 blue. And it's giving me the luminance values of that channel. I'm going to go to my background layer, press Command J, and then bring this on top of everything and take this to a blend mode of soft light. Now, what that's going to do for me is something pretty interesting. It's just bringing in the brighter tones. If we look at this layer, you can see what we have here. And what's happening when we take that to a blend mode of soft light is really interesting. What it's doing is it's adding contrast in a pretty unique way. It's mapping it across the different tones, and it's not affecting the contrast of the entirety of the image. A lot of our darker tones are not becoming darker. It's more dealing with these midtones, which is great for this particular image, and I'm digging that. The next thing that I want to do is some burning and dodging. Now, this is going to be a little bit drastic, but we'll back it off and make it interesting. I'm going to create a new layer, Shift, Option, Command N, or Shift, Alt, Control N, and then Option, Delete, or Alt-Delete to fill with black. Remember your shortcut to fill with your foreground color? It's Option-Delete or Alt-Delete for foreground, Command or Control-Delete for background. We'll take this to a blend mode of soft light. We're all of a sudden going to see all of this crazy contrast added to the image. And let's take this down a little bit. Cool, that looks pretty good. If there are any areas where we want to mask it off, we can, of course, do that. Create a mask and paint with black. And mask it off this window here. You can shift-click that mask to look at my before and after. Alright, next thing I want to do is create another layer. Shift, Option, Command N, or Shift, Alt, Control N, and take this layer to a blend mode of soft light. And what I want to do here is do some dodging. And I want to add a little bit of flow to this image. So I'm going to follow some of these vines, which I think are kind of interesting. And right now I know that the flow is a little bit too drastic. Whoa, I didn't like that one. Keep a little bit of the fluidity going here. Kind of leading into the window there. Let's look at our before and after, okay? Again, I know it's too intense, but don't worry. We can back it off. You know something else we can do? If we want to keep it up high, we can also blur this layer. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. What that will do is it'll create a little bit of a transition between where we have this. Just looking where I could dial that in. Click OK there. Softens the edge a little bit. Let's go before and after. You know, with a lot of burning and dodging, you don't necessarily want it to be noticeable. When you turn it on and off, you want it to be noticeable, but not to the viewer. So the viewer should more experience the burn and dodge than identify the burn and dodge. Alright, looking at my before and after, analyzing where we're going. I'm going to turn on my leaves there. I want to bring those back because I like that bright green color. And I can also try this on a blend mode of normal if I don't want it quite so punchy, and lower the opacity a little bit if I want it to bring it back in. But I like the combination of colors that I have going on here with the deeper tones as well as those greens that are coming in. Let's go to full screen view mode. Take a look at what we have so far. F7 to bring back our layers palette. Here's our before and after. We've definitely created this really interesting mood by going through a number of different steps. We've added a bit of edge to the image. The last thing that I want to do is do my final burning and dodging. Shift Option Command N or Shift Alt Control N. Name the layer burn. Grab my brush. Blend mode of soft light. And I'm going to take my opacity down a little bit just because I know that I'm not going to have this all the way up. That being said, as you've experienced, I tend to like to do things with a little bit more intensity because I know I can always back them off later. And also, by doing things with a little bit more intensity, you can actually see what you're doing, and you can see how it's working, and then you can dial in the exact amount. Let's take a look see if we can still see our travel through the image. Look at our before and after. Pull those back, zoom in. Press tab to get rid of everything. Reposition the image. Step back for a second. Let go of the mouse. Blink. Look away. Look back. Very cool. The file corriglieto.psd. And once it's open in Photoshop, press F to full screen view mode. And I'm going to press Command plus to zoom in a little bit. And here we have a photograph of one of the top Ironman athletes in the world, Chris Lieto. And what we're going to do here is modify this a bit to make it a little bit more edgy, a little bit more punchy, add a little bit of depth to the image. So we're going to start off with our usual technique. And you know the routine here, right? Command J, or Control J to copy this a few times. The middle one is black and white. The top one is blend mode, and we'll go ahead and select the black and white layer and simply desaturate, or of course you know that we can go down to our adjustment layer icon and choose black and white and pick any one of these black and white conversions. Now in order to see that, I need to turn off my top layer, and let me see if I can get one where I think it looks good here. One of the things I know what happens is when I apply that final blend mode, the image is going to get darker. So I'm looking for a little bit of a lighter black and white conversion. Just want to dial that in, click OK. Now click on my top layer, and let's go ahead and double-click Color, double-click Navigator so we can focus in on the layers. Change that to a blend mode of good old soft light. Very cool. That is looking really good. Stage 1's complete. Let me zoom out so I can actually see my image. It's hard working on a monitor with this low resolution, but we can pull it off. And the next step that I want to take is I want to do some burning and dodging. I'm going to create a new layer, Shift Command N. Name layer Burn. Zoom out. Grab my brush. Nice big brush. And take my opacity all the way up to 100. My opacity of my layer, I'm going to drop that down so I can keep it somewhat subtle. You know what I'll be doing here at the end of the image, be brightening this up overall, yet it's kind of nice to have this initial burn down. I can control the intensity of it. Let's take it to a blend mode of soft light, see how it's actually looking as a burn layer. Here's my before and after, giving Chris a little bit of glow, a little bit of presence there. Hey, that's pretty cool. I like that. One thing that I may want to do at this stage is mask out some of this on the corners here. So I'm going to go ahead and create a mask, and then with a real low opacity, maybe 10-15% or so, I'm going to paint with black. And what that's going to do for me, as you can kind of see here, I'm not sure if you guys will be able to see it on your end, but just kind of bringing some of it back. So here's kind of my before and after. So I'm not going to complete black on those edges. I dig that. That's looking good. Let's look at our before and after by option alt clicking the background layer. And so far so good. We're going in a pretty cool direction. Let's add some color here. And we'll do this with color balance. And then blend mode this one to soft light, so it's mapped in there. Make that subtle. Now we need a curves adjustment layer, right? Because everything became really dark. Let's brighten the image up overall. Click OK, zoom out a little bit. Let's look at our before and after. Look at our before and after with this one. With that color layer, I'm going to pull that back a little bit, as well as my curves adjustment layer. I'm just going to pull that back a tad bit. And I'm also going to mask off part of the face here. Became a little bit too bright for me. So I'm just bringing this in little by little. I know I got the wall there, but that's okay. That's easy to fix. All I need to do with that is paint with white at 100%. Do my touch-up work or my cleanup work. And now let's look at that before and after. Okay, cool. Brought the face down. Just so I have some detail there, so it's not completely blown out. Well, let's take a look at the image, tab, and then zoom in, F to go to full screen view mode. Now, one of the things I just noticed is that my full screen view mode is not black because Photoshop crashed and I had to reboot it. So let's go ahead and change that. What we can do here, select your paint bucket and black, shift click that background. Now that full screen is in black. The image is in a good place. There are only a few more things that we need to do with this image, and we'll do that in the next movie.